Hello everyone, this is Joe Wall with Insurance Toolkits, and today we are going to be re-recording our demo video. This is much needed as the last time we recorded it was many months ago, and we've had a number of changes. We've launched term, lots of things have changed in the past several months and will continue to do so. So first thing I'll show you is our landing page. You can still go to fextoolkit.com. It'll just redirect you to our new URL, insurancetoolkits.com. We changed the name to reflect for the fact that we have both FEX and term in now. So we're just going to go ahead and log in here and go right to the quoter here. So as usual, we'll start with the settings page. So you still have your light link here. So the reason that we give this to all of you, and I'll show you an example if I make a new window here, put it up here, and I'm going to resize this to be about the size of my phone. So this is essentially what it would look like on your mobile device. So if you bookmark this on Chrome, Safari, Firefox, whatever you use, it's much easier than opening the app or going to the web. Well, not that you can go to the website on your phone, but I'll show you here. If I just put in 55, put Texas, and then we'll put age 55, get quote, and it pops up with all the different companies. And you can even send this to a client. It'll have the contact us button on the tile. And if they fill that out, that gets essentially sent as a lead to your CRM. And we will give you the option in the coming weeks to remove the contact us button entirely, but this acts as a pretty simple way to run a quote on your phone. So make sure when you get your account, go into your settings page and bookmark this link on your phone. Keep it in your browser. It'll give you a quick and easy way to run quotes. So X out of that. So as usual, you can still put the final expense or term quoter on your website. So keep in mind, there are two, at least for the time being, there are two light links and there's two sets of embeddable code. So if I go to term and I go to settings, it'll have its own light link and its own embeddable code here. So the embeddable code, and I'll go back to FEX just because we're going to be spending most of our time on it. It is TCPA compliant. So if I was to, let's do an example here. We'll say 5,000, we'll say, well, let's put in the birthday. So 1/1/1965. And we'll just put in my information here. And we'll put in my number. Get quote. So it'll load up the quotes for the client. If you want to get kind of a second level lead, like if they're interested in a certain company, that you can click apply now, or their client can click apply now, and they can enter in the lead here. Then it gets pushed again over to your CRM with the expanded information. And of course, you can set custom carriers. So you can have, as I'll show you in a second here, if I go over to customization, you have several levels of exclusions in your settings. So you can pick the companies that you do and don't want to show for your account. You can pick the companies that you do and don't want to show for your website or your light link, because those companies might be different than the ones you want to see when you're logged in. And then if you have any agents under your account, you'll be able to determine what they see under their account with this panel down here, because that again might be different than the rest. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to leave everything on. The only ones I'm turning off, you can see, are the different American Amicable rate packages. I'm just going to leave on Family Choice and Senior Choice. That's kind of the most common American Amicables, so those are the ones I'm going to use. And we will, before we go any further, we're going to come back to the CRM at the end, but you can see I acted as the client. I put in the lead on my quote-unquote web quoter, or the example at least. So this is the lead that I put in here. So if I wanted to reach out to this client, I just call the number, I got the email, so it goes right over to the CRM here. So let's start with the quoter itself this time. We'll mix it up a bit. So we're not going to enter any drug or health information on the right here. And before we go any further, I'll just make a note. So the toggle up here, just as it was before, it doesn't really affect much. You can still run a quote without entering anything on the right side, but some people just like the cleaner interface. They don't want to see the underwriting. That's fine. You can toggle it off and you won't even have to see it. So for the time being, we'll put in 10,000. I changed the default state for the demo to Florida, change it up a bit. And I'll put in 1/1/1960. That'll make the client 61. We'll leave off height and weight for now. We'll leave off nicotine use, and we'll keep the payment as bank draft EFT. I'll hit get quote. See, everything returns in under a second here. So a few things to point out on the results. Firstly is the star. So whenever you see the star on the left, it means the carrier offers Social Security billing. So if you put your business with carriers that support Social Security billing, it'll probably help your persistency, your placement. It's just generally a good thing to do. And if we hit the expand menu, a few more options will pop up. So if a carrier offers limited pay or accidental, that'll show in the expand menu. You can push your cases over to the CRM and save all their drug and health information HIPAA compliantly, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the demo here. If a carrier offers an e-app, you can get linked right to the e-app here. So if I click on Sentinel, so it'll take me right over to the Sentinel e-app. Quote compare, we'll take a look at again in a few minutes here. And when you scroll down, the companies are just sorted by rate, because again, these are all level products that we quoted. And if a carrier is not offered for whatever reason, some carriers are not offered in Florida, it'll tell you down here. So scroll all the way up. So now we're going to enter in some underwriting. So the first thing I'm going to enter in is spironolactone. So this can be used for a number of different reasons. And whenever you enter a medication, remember it can stand on its own. So we're going to show you the list of reasons it can be used for, at least the accepted ones. And whenever you enter in that medication, in this case, we're going to put high blood pressure. We're going to say the client's been taking it for about 5 years. So we'll say since 2016, they're currently taking it. And it'll get added. So there's no need for us to enter the corresponding condition under the health conditions, because it's already added under the drug. So our underwriting system is linear, so everything can stand on its own. So now we're going to run this quote, and now we'll see a few different things pop up here. So you can see none of the coverage indications changed. Just because someone's taking spironolactone, that's for any of the companies we have in the software, not necessarily a knockout or any kind of indication. But several of them will tell you in their guides that this medication will trigger a referral to an underwriter. So if we mouse over, several companies actually will tell you that it could get referred to an underwriter. So we let you know, and this occurs in many different, the red dot indicator, as we call it, occurs in many different circumstances. Another one that I'll show you here, we'll put in 3 different high blood pressure medications. So we'll put in lisinopril. First fill doesn't matter. I'm just going to enter 3 off the top of my head. Zestril, which is a generic for lisinopril, and amlodipine. Pressure. And there we go. So we got 3 high blood pressure medications in here. I get quote. Scroll down, you see with Liberty Bankers, it'll tell you simplified issue preferred, but because of 3 or more high blood pressure medications, it'll likely be pushed standard. Now, this is nowhere in their guides. There's nowhere that lists this for them, but being that we are agents, we know that generally if the client, at least in the current guidelines for Liberty Bankers, is taking 3 or more medications for high blood pressure, it'll likely go standard. So we let you know that here. Without trying to harp on the red dot too much, I'm going to show you one other example. If I go to my account, if you're a telesales agent, we do have the telesales toggle here. So if you're not face-to-face, certain carriers, for example, will limit your Assurant. They will limit their non-face-to-face face amounts, telesales face amounts, to 15,000. Certain carriers don't offer voice signatures in certain states. Prosperity, there's no voice signature if the client's in PA. So if you're selling over the phone, turn that on, and I'll show you what that will do. And remember, all your information saves based on the last quote you ran, even if you're going back and forth between tabs. So you get quote. And you can see for Mutual of Omaha, we remind you that, hey, Moo tracks the signer's IP address, so please make sure that your prospect is in or near their home address or their home city when you sign the application, or you could get in a little bit of trouble. So that's just another feature and I'll turn that off because we don't really need to have that on for the rest of the demo. But whenever you look at the red dot, just know that it's an alert. You ran a face amount that's not valid, and I'll show you one more example. If we move to guaranteed, and I'll change this to a weird number. See, Gerber, they only allow quoting in increments of 1,000, and we calculated it, in this case, at the closest face amount of 10. And same thing for AIG. So whenever you see the red dot, always make sure you mouse over it because it's going to show you something important. Now, if I change the quote that we're going to run, and we'll just make this an even number again, to graded modified. So remember, whenever you enter drug and health information, it's going to gray out, and I'll show you just real quick. So I put an AFib. It's going to gray out the coverage type, and the software is just going to go by what the drug and health information that you put in indicates. But for now, I'm going to take that off and just run a graded modified quote. So make a quote, and you'll see some new information pop up on the right side here. So whenever you see the money sign, that means your comp might get cut for that product. So for example, Mutual of Omaha graded, there can be up to a 40% comp hit. American Amicable Senior Choice up to a 15%. So again, this can vary by contract. It can vary by the organization you have your contracts through. But whenever you see the money sign, it means generally you probably are going to see a comp cut if you're writing that product. Now, if you look at the I's, so we call this the plan info button for final expense. It functions a little bit differently for term. It'll tell you the graded modified parameters for that product. Now, there's several of them that are pretty interesting. I think Prosperity Prime Term is a pretty interesting product. Liberty Bankers Modified is another one here. So all these plans are different. All the parameters, graded, modified, they can all blend together. So if a client ever asks you, hey, what does this plan actually entail, or this graded modified plan, you can quickly mouse over and tell them exactly what you are going to be enrolling them in. Now, if I scroll up here, I'm just going to enter an easy one that'll knock out a lot of companies. If I put in donepezil for dementia, first fill doesn't really matter in this case. I'll look at quote. So now we'll see a new button pop up. This is the question mark, the purple question mark. So whenever you see the purple, and most carriers are knocked out, as you can see, but whenever you see the purple question mark, it means that for whatever reason, the product that you're looking at is graded, modified, standard, or in some way it's not the best level of coverage that that company can offer. So Great Western, for example, they offer a level product. So it's going to, when we scroll over here, it's going to tell us if they've taken the donepezil, if they've been treated for dementia within 2 years, it's guaranteed. So we always like to tell people that we want you to use this as a tool, not a crutch. Now, we do have many people who use it as a crutch. They put in everything into the toolkit, and they have great success, great results. I even posted a little anecdote on my Facebook about an agent that uses it as a crutch and has good success. But in my opinion, there's no better underwriter than someone who really knows what they're looking at and what they're doing. So we have this in the software so that you can learn just like we know all the underwriting for all the different companies. Now, if a company is excluded, if it's grayed out for any reason, not just underwriting, you can mouse over the question mark and it'll tell you why that company is excluded. And the more you put in, the more it'll show for the Y button. So it'll give you complete information. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, we're going to go do some more underwriting. So we're going to put in gabapentin. We're going to put it in for pain. First fill doesn't make a big difference in this case. And we're going to put in metformin for diabetes. This is a very, very common medication combination. We'll just say first fill back in 2015. So now you're going to see what we call our fringe question or follow-up question system. So again, our underwriting system is linear. So after you enter the condition and answer all the applicable follow-up questions, there's no clicking, there's nothing you have to do afterwards. So this question is asked by a few different companies. Uncontrolled diabetes in the past 3 years, we're going to say no. Uncontrolled diabetes in the past year, we'll say no. And now it'll pop up diabetic neuropathy. So some carriers, for example, American Amicable and Assurant, I believe, if you put in an explanation, generally they can take it immediate. But just remember, in this case, diabetic neuropathy is not a condition. It's a combination of conditions, diabetes and neuropathy. So gabapentin is generally a nerve pain pill, and metformin is diabetes. So therefore, gabapentin and metformin is diabetic neuropathy. Now, you can remove this indication and run it otherwise, but we have that in the software just so you're aware. And we have this in for a number of other conditions as well. So, for example, if I put in spironolactone, I'll put it in for high blood pressure, put in Coreg, it'll suggest CHF. Now, does every single person taking spironolactone and Coreg have CHF? Probably not, but many do. So we have this in the software just so you can ask any follow-up questions, collect any medications that you might have missed, just so that, again, you can underwrite as completely and thoroughly as possible and that there's no surprises on the phone interview or e-application, whatever you're doing. So now we're going to look at a few more underwriting scenarios here. Type in past cancer. This will be a good way for me to demonstrate our follow-up question system. Now, when I type in past cancer, and I should probably backtrack here. So if I type in cancer, just in general, you can see there's only 5 options in the software for cancer. The main 2, you're probably not going to use these 3 all too much, but current cancer and past cancer are the main 2. So we kind of call our underwriting system a reverse funnel. So we want to show you as few options as we can at the beginning, and then widen it down as you picked the selection that you want to pick, and we can kind of curate what you see after that. So we're going to hit past cancer. Now it's going to ask me the type of cancer. So only certain carriers care about, outside of basal cell, the type of cancer, and I have them all turned on in the software. So GCU, Security National, I believe KSKJ, and Cincinnati Equitable, a number of carriers care about it. So when you have those carriers turned on in FEX Toolkit, it's going to ask the type of cancer. Now, if you turned off those carriers, it's not going to ask you because it's not relevant. But in this case, blood, bone marrow, or RS. So we're going to hit other. Data last treatment, we'll just say like 2016, 5 years ago. So they were diagnosed in 2015. Now, have they ever had cancer more than once? This is a question asked by several companies. And if I answer this question yes, it's going to ask me a follow-up question. Has the prospect ever had recurrent cancer of the same type? Now, if I answer that first question no, it wouldn't show me this follow-up question because that wouldn't make sense. You can't have recurrent cancer of the same type if you never had cancer more than once to begin with. So our underwriting system is intelligent and only asks you questions that are, again, relevant to at least one of the carriers that you have selected, and it kind of makes sense of what you put in as you type it in. So will it know, has the prospect ever had metastatic cancer? We'll say no. In the past 4 years, have they had any chemo or radiation? No. Pancreatic or liver or ovarian? No. So you can see there's a number of questions there, but again, I have 30-something carriers turned on. You're probably not contracted with all these carriers in FEX Toolkit, so it'll ask you all the relevant questions. So now every carrier in the software, I've asked every relevant question to cancer or past cancer. Now I can run the quote and be confident that the result that I'm getting is a thorough one. There's no additional follow-ups I need to do. And we'll just show, so if I was to put in, I think Belversa is a cancer drug. So even if I enter the medication, it walks me through the same set of questions. So again, that question that we get sometimes, if I enter the medication, do I need to then enter the health conditions? Well, the answer is no. So if I enter that medication, it's tied to past cancer. It's asked all the relevant questions. Some of them are tailored to medication. So sometimes you see different questions for medications with a condition than you do for the health condition. So no, once you enter the drug, you're good to go. You don't need to enter the corresponding health condition. And one final thing I'll show, I know I'm going over a lot of different underwriting here, is COVID. So we are in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, or I guess getting to the end of it. So a number of carriers have COVID questionnaires attached to their applications. So the way that we have our COVID questionnaire set up is 4 separate questions here. The main 2 are active and cured. Now they can be awaiting test results. So active and cured are kind of self-explanatory if they currently have the virus, or if they've had it recently, or they've had it at any point. Now the carrier-specific questions is kind of the way that we quantified all those different questions that the carriers ask. Again, it'll only ask you questions based on the carriers you have turned on in the software. But if I click this here, the ALS treatment we can ignore. So it'll ask me, I'm not going to read through all of them, but it'll ask me all the relevant questions based on the carriers I have selected. So when we go through the carrier-specific questions, again, this is presuming that if the person's had COVID or has it, you put active or cured. But now I've asked all the relevant questions pertaining to all the carriers I have in the software for coronavirus. So that's one thing to note there. So now we're going to go over some of the other tools in the software before we head over to term. So we're going to go over to the health cheat sheet here. So the health cheat sheet is basically a continually up-to-date version of those PDF cheat sheets that we all send around. So the main difference with ours, it's coded to our backend, and we update the software every day. So you never have to worry about an upline who hasn't updated, or you look up a condition, you're not seeing the company that you want to use. Who knows if it's a decline or if it's modified, or if the upline just didn't want to put it down. So it's always up to date. So I'm going to enter in some conditions here. Put in atrial fibrillation. So you can see all the companies come up in alphabetical order. And one company I'll point out specifically just to give an example of what I just meant. For Mutual Omaha, if they've been treated for 2 years for AFib, it's graded, but if they've been diagnosed within the last year, it's a decline. So most cheat sheets, I would assume, if you look at Mutual Omaha, would tell you if it's treated within 2 years, graded, but they'll fail to tell you if diagnosed within a year, decline. Another good example of this, and you can put in as many tiles in here, I'll show you. So it'll just stack the tiles on top of each other. But if I'm looking at past cancer, you can see our whole back end here. So for American Home Life, there's a number of different questions. So when you look at our cheat sheet, you are seeing every piece of information that we have in the software for that condition, for that carrier. So you never have to worry if it's not up to date, if you're not seeing what you want to see. Everything is on the cheat sheet, and it will always be on the cheat sheet. So next one we'll take a look at is the drug lookup. So drug lookup, again, you can just do the drugs on the quoter, but if you just want to look up one medication quickly, we'll do an example here. I'll put in Spiriva, say COPD, and it'll pop up the companies again with that Y button in order of, preferred, standard, gradeds, modifieds, etc. Now, if a carrier is excluded, it'll say decline, or if it's not offered in the state that we selected up here, it'll say decline as well. Now, it also stacks. So if I was to put on, again, the example I used before, donepezil, you can see it'll just knock out a lot of the carriers as you add on drugs. So this can just be a quicker way if you just want to look up a drug or two, as opposed to running, a full quote. So now we're going to assume, let's say we have a case here. Let's say we quoted a client and we're going to go with GCU. So we set up FEX Toolkit, or Insurance Toolkits, I should say, to function the same way as if you are selling in the home or over the phone. And at least the way that I learned it, the way that I see most people do it, is first thing you're doing is you're picking the carrier that you want to use that's a best fit for that client. So I'm going with GCU in this case. So I'm going to hit the compare button. Now when I hit compare, all the information from the quoter is pushed over to the right side. So it's a Florida male, born 1/160, no non-smoke, GCU preferred. Now let's say we're going to run 10,000. The client says, oh, what can I get for $60 a month? We'll put in 60, and then we'll put in 15,000. So I hit get quote. All right, Mr. Jones, you can get $43.86 a month for 10,000. That $60 you wanted would get you just a little over 14,000 in coverage, and then for 15,000 in coverage, it'll be $63.99 a month. And like I showed up here, you can mix and match these however you want. You can put them all as face amounts if you please, or you can do them all as premiums. Of course, my internet here is not the best, but here we go. They all pop up. So again, this is just the 1, 2, 3 ABC, bronze, silver, gold, whatever you call it, close. That's how we have it set up in the toolkit. Now, before we go over to the CRM, I'm actually going to show you term. So we did push term live last week. So term is very similar to final expense, but it is a little bit different. So we do use that different interface here because it wouldn't really make sense if we plopped it on the FEX interface because it would be a little deficient. So the main difference is the ROP toggle here. So if you want to run return a premium, you can do so. Now, if I run the quote, you can see that you have this term length slider here. So whatever the years that you want to select, just select them on the slider and it'll recalculate based on that term length. So you can see we also retooled the plan info button. We changed it to the living benefits toggle. So if you have living benefits included with that product, it'll tell you with the I toggle here. Now, if I want to run a return premium quote, very simple. I just turn on the toggle. There you go. And for the quote compare, we did make it a little bit different for term. So if I was to hit compare here, pushes everything over to the right side. I'm just going to put in, 100, 125, and I hit get quote. And now it'll compare Americo's CBO 50 and CBO 100. Now, we are adding the ability in a few weeks. You can compare non-ROP and ROP products, but for now, this is kind of what we're piloting. So you can compare at least multiple ROP products with the same company. So that is term. And again, I'm not going to go through really too much else with term. It's the same underwriting, same deal as FEX. It just displays the results a little bit differently. So now we are going to, I think we covered, let's see. Oh, let me just explain the difference. So the difference with the underwriting. So type in a condition here. So sometimes in FEX Toolkit, or again, insurance toolkits, you're going to see conditions that either you don't recognize or when you look them up, they don't really seem to be much of anything. Pericardial effusion is a good example of this. This is what would be called an acute condition. So pericardial effusion is just a fancy word for a buildup of fluid around the heart. So this in and of itself, and I'll show you here, if I just put it in, well, term's not the best example. I'll put it in over here. Help if I spelled it right. And we'll get quote. So you can see this doesn't affect the underwriting for any company. Now, these companies are excluded based on state, but it doesn't affect the underwriting for anyone. See? So pericardial effusion, it's just buildup of fluid around the heart. It's not a circulatory disorder. It doesn't code as any kind of heart issue. However, it's the result of something that had to have caused it. So either a surgery, a heart attack, some kind of circulatory event had to have led to this condition. So in this kind of a case, you want to make sure you ask any follow-up questions to the client. Hey, have you had any cardiac events recently? Do you take, what medications do you take to make sure you get to the bottom of it? Now, this is in contrast to what would be considered a chronic condition. I think the most popular chronic condition that we see as agents is COPD. Now, this is, again, it's a little bit different because this is a condition that's really on its own. COPD is COPD. You don't really need to do too much other digging to find out what else is going on there. But that's just one thing I like to note. It'll help you become an underwriter, a better underwriter, when you dig for all the information that you can and understand the conditions that you're seeing. So we'll just get rid of that there. So I'll just do one more demonstration of our follow-up question system. So if I was to put in liver disease, it'll then ask me the follow-up question, cirrhosis of the liver. Now, cirrhosis of the liver, just because I have liver disease doesn't mean I have cirrhosis. However, cirrhosis is a form of liver disease. So sometimes you'll see follow-up questions like this one that just want to make sure that you could have put in a condition that can mean multiple things, but we want to clarify it. So if I was to answer yes to this question, it'll ask me then a follow-up question, because I have prosperity turned on, stage 3/C cirrhosis. So prosperity specifically cares about 3/C cirrhosis. So again, these questions, the follow-up questions, are designed to help you make sure you ask all the relevant questions when you're underwriting so that there are no surprises when you get to your result. And I'll show you. I know I keep saying one more, but all the follow-up questions in here are my favorite. So we'll do albuterol. We'll put asthma mild. Oh, I think I put in, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong thing. I'll put in asthma. I'm thinking of something else. But I think I already showed you guys Balversa. Yeah. So with any medication, when you see the follow-up questions or any health condition, it's just so that we can narrow down exactly what's going on to make sure that, again, you're underwriting as accurately and as thoroughly and completely as you can. So now, a few more things and we'll be all done. Take a look at the CRM. So we've kind of built our CRM to this point to be kind of a basic solution to handle someone who would otherwise be using Google Sheets or just a basic CRM. We're going to be revamping our CRM later this year to make it a lot more comprehensive, add in email drip and all these features that people use. But for the time being, it functions as your calendar. You can schedule appointments. Your client list shows up here. You can sort them. You can set different dispositions, custom dispositions if you'd like. It stores all the medical information. So if I was to, and that's the thing I said I would show you. So we'll head over to FEX and we'll just type in lisinopril. And I hit get quote. So let's just say I wrote the client with Standard Life, and we'll say Robert Johnson. None of this really is relevant. We'll just put save. Head over to my CRM, there's Robert Johnson. Head over to my clients tab, and I can edit this client. We'll make him a sale. We'll keep him yellow. Done. If I go over to medical, you can see the condition and medication here. Now, again, this is HIPAA compliant. So if I was to, and we designed this system so that if you're calling your client in 60 days and they decide, hey, I want to add on $2,000 of coverage. I got my policy in the mail. I'm happy with it. What does $2,000 more cost? Okay. We'll load his quote file. Oh, you're still taking the lisinopril, still the pericardial fusion. Anything change with your health in the past 2 months? And then you can pick up where you left off. And of course, that works over any time frame, not just 60 days. But we designed that so that you have an easy way to follow up. Maybe you got a case referred to underwriting, and if that case gets kicked or modified or whatever, that's not what your client wants, you can quickly pick back up and resume where you left off without having to keep track of paper or other applications. You can just do it all within the toolkit. And you can, of course, keep notes, medical information. You can set an appointment with the client. If you want to upload your CRM or a CSV format of current clients you have, you can do so here. You can add clients without having to push them over here. And you can track your sales statistics. You can set a reminder, callback, whatever else you might want to do. You can do so there. So that is the updated software. So as usual, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always reach us on our Crisp Messenger here. We're available, we're on Easter time, so pretty much 8 a.m. to 11, 12 o'clock at night. Basically, you'll get a response. If not, it'll be the next day. Or you can email indirectly. My email is joe, at fextoolkit.com. And we'll try to help you out with whatever it is. And just remember, if you are on iPhone or Android, you can use the mobile app, and I'll just sign in to, I'm on my computer Mac here, so I can open the mobile app. But, okay. You can see it's basically just a watered down version of, or a simplified, I guess I should say, version of the website. Now on the iPad, we actually give you the option to use either the mobile app or the full website. So you can try both, sometimes different screens. The iPad mini is very different from the iPad Pro. So on the mini, you might like the mobile app. On the Pro, you might like the full website. So we give you the option there, because a lot of us, of course, are using iPads, but you can play around with the mobile app. And we will have term in the mobile app beginning of May. We're still working on that mobile app update for the time being. But other than that, this will serve as our up-to-date demo for at least at this point, April 13th, 2021. So you guys can please like and subscribe to the video. It really helps us. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks.